moving on to the next question. This one is my well water. This is something that one of the more frequent questions I hear. It may be phrased slightly different, but this is something that I hear quite a bit. My well water has a funny taste, but my neighbors tell me it's fine. How can I be sure it's safe to drink? And really, in almost all cases, but I also emphasize not all. So don't assume that all funny tasting water is okay. But in almost all cases, the causes of objectionable taste, odor, or colors are from naturally occurring sources, and they often do not present adverse health effects unless somebody just happens to be very susceptible to that constituent. And then this an example would be the sodium. Most people can tolerate higher sodium, but those on low sodium diets, that may be an issue. On the shore, the most often these objectionable taste, odors, and colors come from iron. Iron is probably the most common source. It gives a metallic taste, and also most folks on the shore have seen rust staining both in their house and if they water their lawn on any of their concrete or sides of their house, or if it gets on their cars as well. But iron is probably the most common. Rarely is it at levels that would have an adverse health effect. In almost all cases, it's really more just an objectionable taste and color. High dissolved solids, either from sodium and chloride in salt, or high calcium and carbonate. And in both cases, you can have deposits, scaling, or a salty taste. You can also have sulfate, and this is often associated. If you go to this would be the smell you get when you're walking in a marsh, and it's kind of a rotten egg odor. And on the shore, it's not that uncommon. When you drill a well, you're drilling into old stream channels, you're drilling into old beaches, and in some cases, not too far away from the sands that you have your well drilled into, there may be some old ancient marshes that are also buried. And in these old ancient marshes, you may have the decaying plant matter and that type of material where the sulfur, the sulfate, can come from, and this may end up, you may end up pulling this from that material into your well, and you can sometimes get this rotten egg odor or taste. It can also very often create problems in hot water tanks, and can be very detrimental to your hot water tanks as well. Other issues, if the pH is very low, it can cause corrosion in your plumbing. A lot of folks have mostly plastic pipe now, and except at your faucets, corrosion is not an issue. But if you do have older piping, corrosion can be, especially if it's galvanized pipe, corrosion can be a significant issue. Low pH is most commonly found in the shallow groundwater. As you go deeper, high pH can be a problem. This often has kind of a slippery feel, and it can also be difficult to rinse off both if the glasses. This is where you get spots on your glasses. And this is also where if you're taking a shower, you have trouble rinsing your suds out of your hair.
So what would be a quick definition of hard or soft water?
Generally, hard water is normally associated with calcium or magnesium carbonate, and this is the same type of material you'd find with shell material. And again, on the shore, as I gave the example with the sulfur being associated with marsh material, if you drilled your well and it's in the sand, but there, especially if you were like, if it's an old beach deposit, if there was a lot of shells, oysters and clams in that material, then there's going to more likely than not also be a lot of calcium from that shell material. As the shell material dissolves, it's made of a lot of calcium carbonate. That calcium carbonate can dissolve into the groundwater that you pump. And that calcium carbonate creates the hard water, which is, again, difficult to rinse off and can cause objectionable spotting on your glassware. The levels of what constitutes hard water can vary a bit, but a general rule of thumb would be somewhere around what they call 150 part per million or 150 milligram per liter of hardness as calcium carbonate would be what would be defined as generally hard water. It can vary. Some people say 130 milligrams per liter. Some people say 180. So I kind of split the middle and said 150. You can find out if you have hard water by sending your water off to be tested. And I have some slides with some ways to have your water tested further on in this presentation.
Mr. Muley.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
was just going to point out that we are now halfway through
We
the
are.
forum.
I've
And
noticed that.
so although we have many questions for the wells, I think we should possibly maybe move to the septic, and if there's time at the end, come back to the wells.
How much longer do you need, Britt?
Well, we can accelerate. We've already covered a lot of these questions. So we can probably get through many of these pretty quickly. Let's give it another 10 minutes and see where we are in 10 minutes.
All right,
Sounds
let's
good. I think that sounds good.
Okay. So the next question is, how can I test my well without opening it up to nitrates, bacteria, and other contaminants? And this is very, very easy. You should not open up your well to test it. The fewer times you open up your well, the safer your well is. It should only be opened by you, or if you know what you're doing, or it should be opened up by a licensed well driller or other certified person. In terms of testing your water, generally you collect the water directly from your one of your indoor faucets. The sink faucet is most commonly used, and there are a number of places you can have your water tested. I give some links to some laboratories that are certified to test drinking water. You should only use a laboratory that's certified in the Commonwealth to test drinking water. There's also, and I can't emphasize this enough, there's the Virginia Household Water Quality Program. And the Groundwater Committee has been working with the Virginia Household Water Quality Program for almost 20 years now in promoting their testing program, where they periodically come on the shore and accept water samples. You bring your water sample to them, and they will, in some cases for a very small fee, test your water, and provide the results from that testing. So I would highly recommend looking at and we always publicize when they're coming to the shore, but you can also look for yourself and see the next time that they're on the shore. They were on the shore last July was the most recent time, and so they're here pretty frequently. This also goes through and identifies what's most probably what's most important to test if you're shallow. If you're in the shallow aquifer, all wells you should always test for bacteria, regardless. And so that's, whether you're shallow or deep, test for bacteria. If you're shallow, the more common issues are pH, iron, nitrate, and sulfate. So I would definitely look at that. And then you may want to test for more, but that's kind of the short list. And for the deep aquifers, the pH, iron again, because iron is a big problem. Sulfate, it's a very common problem in the deeper aquifers, as well as dissolved solids. That gives you information whether your water's salty or not, and alkalinity. I'd also like to note, while this is not from the aquifer, if you have older plumbing, it's good to also test for lead and copper. If you have old pipe, that the lead and copper could be